American Psycho, what an awesome movie. I feel like it's one of those rare movies that brings the best of both worlds. Like, it provides the humor and ridiculousness of some great movies, but also the thoughtfulness and depth of other great films. It's amazing. I really can't wait to begin discussing this, so welcome to Classic Explained, Episode 4. American Psycho. I'm gonna break it down using 3 themes. 1, male superficiality, where we'll discuss Patrick's humanity, Patrick's superficiality, the frigate bird symbol, Patrick's narcissism, and the opening monologue. 2, upper class ignorance, where we'll discuss the characters' interactions, upper class values, and why no one notices Patrick's psychopathy. And 3, Patrick's escapism, where we'll discuss if the killings are real or mental, Patrick's insecurity, repressed rage, upper class desensitization, yuppie culture, the pornography tape, the Texas Chainsaw Massacre tape, Patrick's CDs, the strange message in the ATM, and the final monologue, and much more. And if you like this video, please leave a thumbs up and a comment. It helps so much. And if you want to see more of these, please make sure to subscribe as well. Let's get started. Theme number 1, male superficiality. In this movie, it's quite clear that Patrick Bateman is the main character, but surprisingly, we don't learn much about him as a person. Throughout the entire film, we get very little insight into the human aspect of Patrick. We learn almost nothing about his family. We never find out about his true passions. We don't really know who he actually likes, and we don't even know what his career is, specifically. And it's not because this movie is surface level. We all know this movie is far from surface level, but it's because Patrick is surface level. He's extremely superficial. He spends so much of his time at work, but we never actually see him working. All he does is schedule reservations at high-end restaurants, order in drinks, and critique the work wardrobe of Jean, his assistant. And when he describes his job to others, there's no detail. He prefers only to show off the name of the company and the fact that it's on Wall Street. We even hear from Evelyn that he doesn't like his job. She actually says he hates it. This all clearly showcases that Patrick lives for public presentation, and this way of living derives entirely from insecurity. Patrick also falls in love with the presentation aspect of his life, because this is all he has. He has no other form of love. He's detached from his family, he's annoyed by his fiancée, and it's clear that he isn't truly friends with the men he hangs out with. They just all happen to fall into the same level of the social hierarchy. A very brief but relevant symbol of this is when we see Patrick watching what sounds like Jeopardy. The host says, during courtship, the male frigate bird inflates to enormous size the red pouch found here. This, in nature, is the male frigate bird's way of attracting a mate. It's a temporary and surface-level way of gaining attention, quite similar to Patrick's way of living. Another really important part of Patrick's obsession over his own presentation is his narcissism. He's obsessed with the way he looks. In his entire opening monologue, when we are supposed to learn about him as a person, he focuses only on the details of his diet, workout, and skincare routine. But at the end of his monologue, we get the most interesting part of the film's intro. Patrick says, there is an idea of a Patrick Bateman, some kind of abstraction, but there is no real me. Only an entity, something illusory. And though I can hide my cold gaze, and you can shake my hand and feel flesh gripping yours, and maybe you can even sense our lifestyles are probably comparable, I simply am not there. This final part of his opening monologue captures this entire theme. It showcases that Patrick is a man who is so wrapped up in superficiality that he has totally lost his sense of humanity. And I think it's also symbolic how in this same moment he is peeling back his face mask as he gives us the first hint into who he might actually be. Theme number 2. Upper class ignorance. I think for me, the main source of the comedy in this movie is the ignorance of so many of the characters. Their values are wildly skewed, and they are no different from Patrick as human beings. And even though it's funny, it provides a very honest and unrelenting critique on the lifestyles of the upper class. These characters try to have sophisticated discussions about world issues, only using buzzwords and cliches, pretending to have some care or any knowledge of other countries and communities. They compete aggressively for the most tasteful business card. The men simplify women all the way down to trophies for them to be seen with. They are also having affairs with each other's partners and are likely all aware of it. This showcases that there is no love between these people. they're empty. Their activities with each other are all just a collective desperate climb for conformity and social dominance. I also notice when I watch this film that there's a lurking awkwardness to every interaction. Everyone seems so staged, like they've completely planned what they're about to say before they say it. Conversations are really disjointed, and this is also purposeful by the filmmaker. Their lives are a game of pretend. The only characters that show no interest in Patrick's title and job location are the prostitutes, which makes perfect sense. They have no need to feel like they need to pretend to care. And most interestingly, no one in Patrick's high-class community notices his overtly psychotic actions. And whether it's in Patrick's head or not, we'll talk about a little bit later, but I think the fact that people don't notice the crazy things that Patrick does is a major symbol of upper-class ignorance. When Patrick is clearly putting a body into his trunk, Lewis doesn't notice because he is so concerned about where Patrick purchased the bag for the body. Upper-class people fail to notice the atrocities going on throughout the world and in their community because it rarely ever affects them. The only issues they now have are extremely trivial, like clothing, accessories, and events, and these things are the main topics of conversation for the characters in this movie. And we're going to dive even further into this topic of ignorance in theme number 3. Patrick's escapism. So when it comes to whether Patrick is a murderer or not, there's clearly no right or wrong answer. I was reading an AV Club interview with the director, Mary Herron, and she said, "I don't think that everything happened, but that's for people to decide themselves. If somebody says that it's all in his head and that makes the movie for them, that's fine." So personally, when it comes to my interpretation, I see it almost all as occurring in Patrick's head. I think killing the homeless man and some of the people in the house could be real, and I think the schedule that Jean finds at the end is real. Patrick certainly has psychotic thoughts, but Patrick is also leaving trails of blood, sweating in front of detectives, leaving bodies in closets for realtors to find, and having shootouts with cops, which is all super surreal. I also think Kimball isn't actually real, but whether it's real or not, I think Patrick's murders serve an enormous purpose for the film's message. Patrick's killings are symbolic of two things. One, repressed rage from following a life of conformity, and two, the upper class's desensitization to cruel and immoral actions. Let's start with the first one. Earlier in the film, Evelyn asks Patrick why he works at a job he hates, and Patrick says, "Because I want to fit in." But deep inside Patrick, there's this dying need to be a real person and find his individuality. When Evelyn claims Patrick is inhuman, Patrick desperately replies, "No, I'm in touch with my humanity," when he has shown barely any evidence of that to other people and to the audience. He also says while at the spa, "I have all the characteristics of a human being. Flesh, blood, skin, hair, but not a single clear, identifiable emotion, except for greed and disgust. Something horrible is happening inside of me, and I don't know why. My nightly bloodlust has overflown into my days. I feel lethal, on the verge of frenzy. I think my mask of sanity is about to slip." This all signifies that Patrick is exhausted from repressing his true self, and embarking on a frenzy of cold-blooded murders is his way of releasing this repressed rage. There's even writing on the walls over Patrick's victims reading, "Die yuppie scum." Yuppie culture is basically the culture of young urban professionals who like to show off their preppy symbols of status. We also see 3 different times Patrick describing a favorite musical album of his to his guests, and Patrick's interpretation of each of these 3 albums relates to Patrick's struggle to find his humanity. With 4 by Huey Lewis and the News, Patrick interprets individualism over conformity. With Duke by Genesis, Patrick interprets political freedom and monogamy. And with Simply Whitney Houston, Patrick interprets self-preservation and dignity. And each of the 3 times he describes the CD, he does something completely sick right after. It's as if every psychotic act represents a cry for help. Now let's move on to the second reason for the killings, the upper class's desensitization to cruel and immoral actions. One really big symbol of male and societal desensitization are the scenes with the TV playing in the background at Patrick's apartment. Patrick has 2 things playing in the background on his television. 1, the Texas Chainsaw Massacre, and 2, pornography. These tapes both contain highly sensitive content. They either glue us to the screen or make us change the channel immediately. But But Patrick exists in this eerie, inhuman middle ground where it's just background noise. I think this is symbolic of how upper-class males can become desensitized to the manipulation of sexuality and the cruel atrocities that occur in order to maximize company earnings. Patrick's community doesn't notice his psychopathy and killings because cruelty and desensitization is such a common thing among the upper class. We even get a symbol through Patrick's psychosis where the ATM says, "Feed me a stray cat." This is another symbol of trading life that is deemed insignificant in return for money. And it's the final monologue that captures the reasoning for Patrick's insanity. I want my pain to be inflicted on others. I want no one to escape. But even after admitting this, there is no catharsis. My punishment continues to elude me, and I gain no deeper knowledge of myself. No new knowledge can be extracted from my telling. This confession has meant nothing. What this monologue means is Patrick has lost sense of his humanity, and the killings are his attempt at releasing his frustration on those who have caused it. And even when he tries to become self-aware, admitting his immoral actions, no one cares, because immorality has been completely normalized in his high-class community. Everyone is just as inhumane as Patrick is. They are all American Psychos. Alright, that's my analysis. No Country for Old Men is next. I got a crazy amount of suggestions recently and I'm really excited. And please, let me know your theories on American Psycho or simply what you thought about the movie because I think at the end of the day, it's really funny. I hope you subscribe so I can see you again. And thank you so much for watching. See you later.